Last year, South Africa's freight and logistics markets boosted the economy by nearly 410 billion rand. This contribution is expected to double in just under 2 years. In the meantime, Southern Africa's biggest industry network conference is underway under the theme Upskilling and Reskilling the Transport Industry for Current and Future Challenges. And with South Africa's transport industry from road to rail and ports currently plagued with many challenges, how will we upskill and reskill for the future? Mateta Mkonyama, who's chair of the Southern African Transport Conference, joins us now with more detail. Mateta, a pleasure. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Hilton.
All right, maybe we can start off by reflecting on the transport sector, I think maybe in Southern Africa, as we enter this 42nd conference there. What are some of, I think, the important themes that immediately come to mind that should be and will be on the agenda?
One thing that is clear is that we cannot neglect the assets that we have. So the minister, in fact, reiterated this to say that we've got assets that we need to preserve for the transport sector to play its role as the enabler of the economy and society. So asset preservation becomes quite, critical. However, we need resources, financial resources, to keep up, and we need to be very creative in how we source these financial resources for us to be able to at least maintain the infrastructure that we have.
What is also interesting, I guess, here is the issue of the movement of goods and then the movement of people. And what I find often, Matata, is that when the conversation comes to moving of goods, we always have these elaborate plans because that has a very direct commercial output. But for people, I'm keen to find out what might be on the agenda with the movement of people.
One of the interesting things that the minister touched on earlier when she opened the conference is finalizing the strategy to devolve passenger rail to urban or to metropolitan, essentially municipalities. You remember that it's something that the city of Cape Town has been requesting to say we want to take over this, service, railway service. Railways are a mass mover, and if human settlements had to work closely with railway services, the likes of PRASA, to locate human settlements, low-income settlements around rail stations, that would do two things in the main: reduce the cost of transport for those households, but also increase revenue for those railway services. So railways need to take their rightful place. And the minister essentially says she wants to prioritize, of course, the recovery of the services, but then also the oversight, look at the ways in which metropolitan municipalities can play a much more meaningful role in that regard.
Let's also talk about the theme of upskilling and reskilling for future challenges, Mateta. What exactly do we have in mind when we speak about skills, new skills and skills that already exist within the industry? How do we innovate to make sure that we are fit for purpose in the future?
I'll say two things. One is based on a survey that was done not so long ago in even metropolitan municipalities. One of the questions was to the municipalities, the cities, is the extent to which they are ready to implement their own plans, the ability to implement their own plans. Half of them said they are not, and they asked why they are not able to do so. They indicated that they don't have the necessary capacity, skills in particular, to implement. So a lot is in the hands of these municipalities, cities. So if they're indicating that they are not able to do what they're supposed to be doing, then it's something that we need to address, look at ways in which we can address those things. The other thing is the new challenges. You look at, extreme weather events, what is happening in KwaZulu-Natal, what is happening in the ports, Cape Town and other ports. We need ways in which we can start addressing these challenges, new challenges, with the designs, the systems that we use, guidelines, the way we procure as well. We cannot procure the same way as we used to, given the new challenges that we have. We need to look at how we procure and look at ways in which we can procure innovation. So how can we bring in innovation in the system and not default to current technologies?
Let's then talk also about the need for financial resources. You alluded to it earlier, but you also used the word creative, Matata. I want to speak about that, getting creative about funding. What might that look like?
Well, it will be interesting how the new administration looks at it. There's no new money, so we've got to work within what we have. And also, if we are going to introduce new money, it's got to be from elsewhere. Probably the partnerships with the private sector to be able to implement some of the larger programs. With the current resources, optimizing becomes quite key. The Department of Transport dishes out about 98% of their resources or of their budget to agencies, the 12 agencies, local government, provinces. So they need to make sure that they strengthen their oversight, making sure that every rent counts. They stretch the rent. But then with newer, larger programs, you want to bring in the private sector, on board. One of the key things that the minister will probably look at is the public sector participation framework for transport infrastructure. It's one of the things that was left hanging in the previous administration. I think that will be something that will be prioritized going forward, seeing that the IFP pushed it quite strongly in their manifesto, and now that we have a deputy minister from the IFP.
And then before I let you go, regional integration, there's the Southern Africa Transport Conference there. What sort of conversations can we expect from, a regional perspective and trying to make sure that we are sharing as many resources as possible for the growth and benefit of the region as a whole?
We have a representation at the conference from 18 different countries, many of them from Southern Africa. We also have representation from the broader BRICS. And we have a dedicated session on just what we can learn within the extended BRICS community. Some of the best performing ports in China. So there's a lot that we can learn from them. If we are going to be a big South Africa is going to be a big player regionally, we need to sort out our networks within the region, roads, our borders, as well. They need to be embrace technology. So digitalization of the sector becomes quite important, so that the cost of implementing these programs is minimized, but without losing the quality.
Well, Matata, thank you for taking us through this one. We'll be keen to reflect at the end of it all. Thank you for your time this afternoon. That was Chair of the Southern Africa Transport Conference, Matata Mkonyama.